Title of the project: Capacity Buildings Project. Note: this program is financed by the Capacity Buildings Project with the support of the Global Environment Facility. The general objective of the project is to build the national capacities in terms of information management and environmental knowledge for the implementation, the monitoring, and the drafting of reports on multilateral environmental agreements in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals in Benin. Importance of multilateral environmental agreements in the Sustainable Development Process of Benin. It is around this theme that the national television host Martin Pepin-Aina, General Director of Environment and Climate at the Ministry of the Environment and Sustainable Development, Jibril Ibila, Capacity Buildings Project Coordinator, and Pascal Yonzan, Monitoring and Evaluation in charge of the project. Martin Pepin-Aina first took the floor to shed some light on the theme of the debate. He first thanked the Capacity Buildings Project for initiating this talk on the multilateral environmental agreement. He proceeded saying that just after the Industrial Revolution, the world faced some challenges which were environmental ones. But the revolution has equally impacted the economic growth, so some people have decided to find solutions to the challenges the world was facing, namely the environmental problems. That's how multilateral environmental agreements were initiated to find solutions to all kinds of environmental challenges. So those conventions have been signed. Benin has ratified them as our country was well aware of the importance to protect the environment. Benin has about 20 conventions in the environment sector and is engaged to respect the decisions taken which all member countries have to observe. Environment focal points have thus been mobilized to represent Benin in international conferences and learn and take boon of the advantages those multilateral environmental agreements offer to member countries. But as time went on, we noticed some synergy difficulties in the management of those conventions. But with the new government in place, a network has been created for focal point to give account of their participation in conferences and allow Benin to understand fully those conventions and inform the rest of the population. So on February 14th, 2017, an order has been signed by Minister José Tonato to create conventions platform, namely agreements in the chemical domain, or the agreements in the Rio Generation Convention, biodiversity, climate change, and desertification, in order to have synergy in the midst of focal point, but the synergy problem was still not faced. So the minister later asked to write down the project like Botswana, Mauritania, and had it transmitted to the Global Environment Facility. We then got the necessary financial support to solve our problems and inform the populations who are also actors as part of these various conventions and work with the Ministry of Environment, which is the focal point of all the environment conventions signed in Benin. Jibril Ibila thanked the channel for helping to inform the population on the work done by the Ministry of the Environment as part of the management of international environment conventions. He equally thanked Minister José Tonato for doing his best for them to have the project known by the Global Environment Facility. Still on the importance of the project, Jibril Ibila recalled that the institutional management of conventions started in 1999. At that time, there was one focal point and his assistant, but there was no collaboration between focal points. Each one of them was in their domain, ignoring that there was links between all those conventions. So when Minister José Tonato took office, having noticed that situation, he said that we need projects that really impact the population, projects which will help solve convention questions and questions relating to the Sustainable Development Goals. Conventions in general started in 1970 with the Stockholm Convention on the Environment. In 1992, the Rio Convention intervened on environment and development. That's how the term sustainable development erupted with the Brundtland Report. So all those who took part in the Rio Declaration were asked to implement the convention in a way to solve all the environment-related problems in synergy. That's why we talk about the Rio Generation Convention. After the Generation Convention of Rio, which includes climate change, biodiversity, and land degradation, the Basel Convention, which regulates the trans-boundary movement of hazardous waste and other waste, the Rotterdam Convention to promote shared responsibilities in relation to importation of hazardous chemicals, and the Stockholm Convention on persistent organic pollutant. All those conventions have connection. So if we don't pay attention each focal point, we isolate himself, and this will not help. That's why Minister José Tornato, in his vision, called for the collaboration of focal points and put conventions that have connections together. So the minister asked for the creation of a platform which gathers all the focal points for them to work in synergy. That's how the project was created, and the goal here is to let national questions related to international conventions on environment be managed efficiently and in relation with sustainable development goals, but above all, put in place a statistical information system which helps give account of the progress made by Benin in terms of the implementation of those conventions. In our countries, our difficulty is to have updated database which gives account of the state of the environment. The Ministry of the Environment has the duty to issue the state of the environment each year. What is the level of air pollution? What is the water pollution? How about the forest, progressing or regressing? How about our animal parks? So if we can't have indicators to monitor, we won't be able to give accurate responses. On the other hand, you will find the Sustainable Development Goals. Benin has subscribed to 17 SDGs in September 2015, but they can't be implemented without the conventions. When you take SDG 13 on the climate change, indicators are indispensable when we address climate change issues. SDG 11 and 12 on chemicals, we have to have a database on all the chemical products. So the question of the journalist on the link between those conventions and the Sustainable Development Goals, Jibril Ibila said that a certain number of SDGs have been assigned to the Ministry of Environment, namely SDGs number 6, 7, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Look at the way, in periodical manner, some people are victims of flooding in the department of Mono, Karimama, in Malanville, which causes death, loss in livestock, and crop loss. So the goal of this project is to avail a database on the environment and provide the right information to both authorities and the population. Conventions are implemented on a national level. The leadership has been given to the Minister of Environment and the Sustainable Development, who works with all other sectoral ministers, prefectural authorities, and local representatives. If the Environment Minister doesn't make sure other sectoral ministers, prefects, and local representatives play their role, the conventions will be managed only at the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development, which is not good. That's why this project is created to bring together all those who are concerned in the implementation of the conventions and have them share their information, their data. That's why, as part of this project, a protocol of agreement is signed by all sectoral ministries to share their information. The first question thrown at Pascal Nyonza was the reason why he decided to train focal point officials at sectoral ministries and even some local representatives. He then said, in terms of training, we have public actors, sectoral ministries, the institutions of the state, and even international institutions represented here in Benin. So all these institutions and structures whose actions impact the environment. So we discussed for about 2 or 3 days to let them know the need to collaborate and work together in the implementation of the multilateral environmental agreement in Benin. We have equally talked with both local and international NGOs on the same issue of the importance to collaborate. Today, NGOs that intervene in questions related to the environment are gathered in a platform called Pro-Environment. All the departments of Benin were represented. During our sections, we equally exchange on all the conventions, what is already achieved, and the implication of non-government organizations in the implementation of those conventions. What I see is that people really needed the right information, and those discussion sections were really well appreciated by the participants. We have conducted the same activity in 4 departments of Benin, namely Mono, Kufo, Wemei, and Zou. and these sections were exclusively meant for the prefectural personnel, environment protection actors, municipal representatives, services in charge of environmental questions in the municipalities. By initiating those talks, it dawned on us that people needed to know what is really going on about the conventions, multilateral environmental agreement, what are the funding opportunities offered by those agreements, and what are the mechanisms to get them. Martin Pepin now takes again the floor to respond to the benefits that the local communities draw from those conventions. He said that the local communities are involved in the implementation of those conventions and sometimes don't even realize it. All the projects initiated are brought necessarily to the local communities. He proceeded saying that the local communities had a big role to play. They are the first beneficiaries of these conventions, and without them being involved, nothing can be done for their own environment, their well-being, and reduce social inequalities. So that's what local communities benefit from in the first hand. In depth, climate changes impact their populations, so actions identified at the level of those communities are implemented. The local communities are key in the implementation of the conventions, and they equally help to provide authorities with necessary information to address the problems related to the environment. For Jibril Ibela, this project is not too late. He started appreciating the vision of Minister José Tonato, who, according to him, understands very well what is at stake. I'm going to tell you that the local communities are so crucial in the implementation of the conventions. In the same direction with what the Director of Climate and Environment just said, Benin took part in the Paris Accord, and before that accord was held, each country was asked to present what it would do to mitigate and adapt to climate change. The documents called the Nationally Determined Contributions (NDCs) are a compilation of solid projects in the environment sector, in land degradation, in renewable energy sector, which permits to reduce greenhouse gas emission or bring a real solution to the population victim of the greenhouse gas. So if Benin is not able to conduct those projects at the local communities level, we won't be able to respect the commitment taken at the international level. Because in 2023, each country will be assessed on the basis of the promise made, so everyone has to play his role to preserve a good image of our country. So those NDCs are what we need to do. The other thing is that when you ask for funding at the Global Environment Facility or at the Green Climate Fund or at the Adaptation Fund, they first look at the content of the project in order to see if it has to do with the nationally determined contributions. And so, the first level to mobilize the funding for your project is to make sure it complies with nationally determined contributions. But local communities have a development plan at the level of their municipality. And when looking for fund, when the partner is aware that a municipality has initiated or envisaged one or two actions as far as climate change, biodiversity, land degradation are concerned, that is very good, and the financial partner will be willing to support that project. The national authority in charge of the Green Climate Fund is Mr. Martin Pepin here, because that fund is supposed to mobilize about $100 billion for project funding. No project coming from Benin can be funded if he does not support that project. So that's the fundamental role played by the Ministry of Environment. It's the Global Environment Facility which backs Benin's up for funding. So no matter where the project emerges from, be it a ministry, NGOs, or from local communities, it has to be supported by the focal point of the Global Environment Facility. About the Adaptation Fund, the support of the Climate Change National Authority is a must. So during our touring in our department, we give them all those information with email addresses, the different ways of writing projects, small, medium, and big size projects, how to elaborate them actually, because by the past people or local communities didn't know how to write a project and get funding from the Green Climate Fund. They really appreciated the quality of the information we give them, saying, please often come to train us or find somebody for us to build our capacities permanently. So when a municipality sends its project, it is studied by the national authority and a multitask staff committed to it, and give them the right information needed, which will allow them to see the Green Climate Fund or the Adaptation Fund finance their projects, or even the Global Environment Facility. So all those who took part in the training sessions understood, namely prefects, municipal authorities, and personnel, because it dawned on them that they had opportunities they could not use because they didn't have the right information. To crown it all, they all appreciated the initiative of the minister because it was the very first time a ministry goes to the municipal level to bring this kind of information. Next year, the same trainings will take place in 4 other departments of Benin. To know if the authorities can really go to the 77 municipalities of Benin and present them with the opportunities for them to grab them, all the guests replied yes. Martin Pepperino thus proceeded, saying municipalities don't have the same realities and don't have the same level of understanding of situations, so they can't be globalized in the presentation of environmental opportunities. It's true that each local representative wants to prepare a better living condition for their people, reduce poverty, and want a sustainable development for all. So we need to consider those 3 points in terms of writing projects and searching for funding at the Green Climate Fund, at the Adaptation Fund, and at the level of the Global Environment Facility. For all these funding mechanisms, the Minister of Environment has put in place some people. At the Green Climate Fund, you have the appointed national authority who is surrounded by competence and allows the municipalities or the civil society to learn how to mobilize the climate funding. Even we are working to help our banks here to have the accreditation like the National Fund for Environment and Climate, which has already got it. So we are working for our banks to have it as well. So as part of this project, for which we thank Minister José Tonato for the implementation of this project, we can develop so many things. Many actions are to be taken. And in the next 4 departments where we are to hold our trainings, we can see how people are yearning for it. So at each training section, we will always improve the quality of the training at the level of each of the municipalities. Pascal Nyonzon presents the results achieved since the project has been launched. We have 2 main results in view, mainly national capacity building for the management of conventions in order to provide a better report on the state of the environment. Here, we are able to share the information on conventions, what is done at the level of each convention in Benin, and the information sharing activity will continue until 2021, first expected result. The second result is the creation of a statistical information system at the national level, he said. He proceeded saying that the training is not finished. We are in a programming process. Those who were programmed in 2019, we tried at 95% to train public actors, NGOs. We conducted trainings on environment assessment tools, trainings on how to collect data. About that, we have got the support of a UN environment consultant who came to work with us in Benin. And we have got other trainings which allow people to know the role everyone has to play and what each one either structure or entity is supposed to bring to have a good result at the national level when all states will be assessed. Our problem is that we lack synergy and capitalization. So we believe that with these projects and everything that is being done, the commitments we have from all the actors involved will not change, and we will be able to move forward. In 2020, we will continue with a certain number of trainings in order to make each one responsible and make sure everybody plays his role for us to have the expected result. Let's now talk about this environmental information system. I think it's one of the big results expected from this project, says the journalist. Reacting to that, Jibril Ibila says that if there is an added value a project can bring to Benin, it would be through these environmental funds. Here is the reason at the international level there is an environment-based information platform that each country follows. The project is Statistical Development Platform on the Environment. And when the UN expert presented this platform, we knew that Benin had a lot of gaps in terms of data to provide in the different components of the environment: air, water, forest, industries, raw materials, etc. I'm not saying that we don't have the data, but when there is a missing information, this compromises all the whole process. So, all the sectoral ministries have been instructed to work together to put in place the Statistical Development Platform on the environment. Here is what we noticed after developing that platform. For the first time, we conducted 3 days of intensive activities in Grand Popo, back in Cotonou, with the collaboration of all key ministries. When we sent our results to the UN Environment, they were glad. For the very first time, Benin was at 66% of the indicators expected from a country. This means the trainings carried out were very crucial. The UN Environment later made recommendations for Benin to improve its environmental information system. This recommendation will be put in place in 2020. We'll then put together the sectoral ministries which didn't take part in the information sharing and the collaboration asked by the Ministry of Environment, so that we can work together in accordance with the format recommended by the UN Environment. 3 countries, Mauritania, Benin and Botswana, are the pilot countries. So it is when we make this environmental information platform a success that it can be extended to other countries. That's why the Minister of the Environment wants us to succeed, because during the account giving session, Benin must not occupy the last position. So we are fighting in collaboration with all the authorities, the Ministry of Environment, so that we can implement the recommendations of the UN Environment and be an example. In order to improve the knowledge of Beninese authorities to provide environmental indicators and the SDGs, a 3-day workshop is envisaged in 2020 to know what we need to do to reach our goals. So it's planned. I have to say this, in order to have the information, the contribution of lecturers, secondary teachers, and other actors like opinion leaders, key people with whom we need to work will be identified, so that on their own, they can share the information and those knowledge to the rest of the population. We will see how to manage conventions in a group of people. Our goal is that the information we start collecting can be brought to all the population, mainly universities, which are a center by excellence of production of key information and data. Look at the number of theses defended in Benin, PhD, master, and bachelor defended in Benin universities. All these are data that are not used. So if we can implicate those panels of eminent lecturers and have them certify those theses, I think we can never say that we lack data in Benin. That's why we have a focal point at the Tertiary Education Ministry, who will be our relay to see to the participation of the University of Abomey-Calavi and Parakou in this data collection and information sharing. It's a good thing that the Director General of Environment and Climate is himself a certified lecturer. So with his colleagues, I believe it will be a success. So the question of the journalist to know if the data collection can be done easily, Martin Pepin expressed no sign of worry as he affirms a big yes. He proceeded saying that all the sectoral ministries are involved as they are able to give information. In each sectoral ministry, we have authorities who can really help. It is not that we lack data, but they are not centered. When you go to the Ministry of Transport, Energy, Water, etc., you will find data locked in racks. And all those data are kind of centered at the level of the university, because universities have interest in them, as those sectors of activities are represented at the level of the university. We need data to provide sustainable solutions to problems. We know there is connection between lands, water, air, etc. So all these data are needed in order to have a platform designed for data collection from each sectoral ministry and crossed data as well. And this is what this project is all about. By crossing the data, each ministry can know what the information is in the other ministry. By doing so, we will be able to have sustainable solutions for the problems experienced by our populations. All the ministries are thus concerned and participate in this exercise. What I equally want to state is that we have most of the time succeeded in gathering all the sectoral ministries. The project management team has to be commended for this because they were able to point out the necessity to collaborate and work together and how to make this project a success. As far as the involvement of ministries is concerned, Pascal Nyonzan says, they made sure people understand that this is not a project owned by the Ministry of Environment alone. It is the statistical information system for Benin in the sector of environment. Regarding the commitment of everyone, we started with a protocol which put together all of the actors involved. A small document will be signed by Secretary Generals of the concerned ministries stating clearly that their ministry is ready to provide the necessary information for this statistical information system. So the protocol is shared with all the actors who read it and agreed. Therefore, as far as the commitment of actors is concerned, there will be no problem about that, as we all convened to work together to make the project a success in the interest of Benin in general. This will be the national information system, and from anywhere in the world, people can have access to any information relating to the environment in Benin. On the advantages to draw or other advantages to draw from this project, Jibril Ibela regrets that we collect data like we understand and want them. But at the international level, the format is clear. When we talk of environment, the structures are clear, and inside them we have subcomponents which have to be taken in consideration. And when we did the exercise, the ministries which think they have the scientific information were all proven wrong. Yes, they have data, but it is not the scientific aspect desired at the international level. Our National Meteor Service, at the Ministry of Infrastructures, Water Information, we have different types of minerals in Benin, and this information have to be given. So here, when we look at our data, they seem okay, but when a scientific work has to be done, those data can't help to do a good job. That is the advantage of this statistical information platform on the environment. Now, when we will be able to provide answers to all the components required at the international level, because the system will be validated by the UN Environment Program, it will be internationally accepted, and anybody who needs information on the environment in Benin can get them on that platform. So like the Director General said, it is after the collection of the data that we can cross them to enable each actor to have the information they need. If you need information, for instance, on agriculture and climate change, which sector are you really interested in? Water, crop loss due to climate change, or is it due to land insecurities? And what are the data which can help us realize that our lands are degrading, causing everyone to go to more fertile lands? And this is a source of trouble between the resident and those looking for better lands. So we need to provide all those information, and we have started because we are also fighting against poverty. In what? Agriculture helps fight poverty. In what? Energy helps fight poverty. So these are some of the sustainable development goals. Fight against poverty. Guarantee the nutritional security for everybody. When your lands are totally degraded, when the water resources are not sufficient to feed the whole nation, we need to think to develop trustworthy and sustainable alternatives. That's the benefit of this project. So when the local and national authorities want to take decisions, they can equally refer to this system. The last time I was in the Mono department, for instance, I will take a very simple example. We were talking about land degradation. The land degradation is not the same in Mono or in Alibori or in the Kufu department. I have to state that in Mono and Kufu is all about gravel pit management, which degrade the land. When you go to the Alibori department, Over there, we experience the production of cotton. That is to tell you that we can talk about land degradation in many angles. During our presentations and referring to the system put in place by the conventions of the UN Environment on the fight against desertification, a national report on Benin has been made and said how the forests were regressing in Benin, how the lands are degrading and at which speed. Despite the fact that we are in the first year of the project, after doing our presentation, people were really happy to hear all the information we brought to them. People didn't know, for instance, that in the Convention on Forest, some migratory birds are protected. You can trade chameleons, snakes, without respecting the clause of this convention, which is the CITES, and people were really glad to know that. Also, people don't know the role of our communal or sacred forest. They are the refuge of our animals, among others. When all will be gone, everyone goes to the sacred forest, and when it dawned on people, there is the place they go to get some species. So people confessed they didn't know all that. So we gave them the contact of the focal points to reach, to get assistance. Even departmental directors, officials say, please come to organize these trainings at the level of our municipalities, at the level of department. In his conclusion, Martin Pepin said the advantages of this statistical information system are huge. He especially made mention of the strategy, so the sampling and the method are very crucial here. The project is about national capacity building in the implementation of the multilateral environmental agreement and the establishment of a statistical information system. And its result will not only be used on the national level but also on the international level. About the focal point, I have to tell you that an assessment of those focal points is operational. So the conventions are going to be managed under that basis. So everyone tried to do what he can. But today, after the inventory of their works, our focal points are more able to manage conventions. These actions of Minister José Tonato are perfectly in line with the third pillar of the government's agenda on the improvement of the population's environment. Pascal Nyonzon, in his final words on the debate, said the statistical information system is a decision-taking tool. So, it will allow the authorities at the communal, departmental, and national level to take the right decisions in line with the protection of the environment. Last intervention on the debate, Jibril Ibila thanked the vision of the Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development, José Tonato, because he has drawn the line and we are just following it and he's watching over it, he maintains. We have equally elaborated a training program for focal points. We now know what is lacking. Each focal point said what he needs to implement the convention. This training program will be implemented and both the current and future focal points will know what to base on to succeed in the implementation of the conventions. It is important for people to work on these environmental questions, to have the right information, to have the right knowledge for things to move forward. Namely, they must master the English language, because even if you are competent and you can't speak English, this will be an obstacle to actively take part in international conferences, etc. And this is part of the training also. The emphasis is put on the need for focal points to train themselves in American cultural centers or in English-speaking countries like Ghana or India and be able to speak English. So this is a criteria before appointing a focal point, his ability to speak English, because we need focal points who can really participate in international conferences which are held most of the time in English and do win for Benin, and not those who, in spite of their brilliant ideas, can't express themselves and are reduced to be spectators.